All right, everyone, last session. How are we feeling? Round of applause for a great day, huh? Yeah. Well, I am so excited to close the day with Amy and Miriam, who are two CrossFit partners in crime. They're so dedicated to CrossFit that they've done CrossFit together in Paris, Vegas, and Seattle, which is pretty impressive. So to start closing out the day, to kick us off, please welcome Amy to the stage.
Facebook and developers have at least three things in common. We serve people. We seek to build new services, and we're entrusted with the data that's created by the first two things. For the health of our industry, we at Facebook know that we need to do better. And we seek to be a lighthouse for people to understand their information and to have control over it. For these reasons, we've made some updates to Facebook Login in recent weeks. After a brief look back, I'll talk over those updates at a high level, and then Miriam's going to go into some more technical details. First, a brief history. In 2007, we launched the Facebook platform. Our vision was that apps should be social, so that friends could share automatically with each other things like their birthdays, their locations, and their calendars. In addition to enabling connections between people, we wanted to enable connections between people and businesses. So we created Facebook Login with the goal of creating a fast and easy login. With just 2 taps, people could create an account and log into an app or website, with no need for a new username or password. We've made updates to the product over the years. In 2012, we redesigned the Facebook Login dialog box to be more clear about what people could choose to share. We heard from people that they were surprised when their friends shared their information with an app. So in 2014, we gave people more control, including about sharing their friends list. And that brings us to the present. As I said, we've made updates in recent weeks, especially around permissions. Before I get into the specifics on the updates, I want to take a moment to talk about our platform principles. You might have heard about these from other speakers today. At Facebook, we don't take changes lightly. We realize that they can affect our ecosystem, affect you as developers. We've made the changes we have because they're grounded in our platform principles. So just to recap them very briefly. First is value, ensuring maximum value to users, to people. Second is control, ensuring that people have transparency and control over their information. And third is trust, building trust with the people who use our products. So let's talk about what's changed. First is our apps and website settings. We've had this. This is where people can go and see where they're logged in with Facebook and what permissions are. But we heard that it was hard to find and not super easy to use. So we've made it more prominent and we've made it more clear. And this is a view of what it looks like on mobile. As you can see here at the top, it says logged in with Facebook. So a person can go in and click edit, see a list of apps, choose one, look at the detail, and this shows the permissions they've granted in the past. They can edit those. They can also choose to disconnect from the app or website if they no longer find it relevant or useful to them. And this change to apps and website settings was really foundational and fundamental. It is the dashboard for people who can go and have control over their information. So it led to some other updates as well. Next, the public profile. As you know, when a person signs in with Facebook and they're prompted with permissions, it's the public profile that is required for them to grant access to in order to create the account or log in. Our streamlined public profile consists of name, photo, and app-scoped user ID. Note that it does not include email address, and just as we're pushing ourselves and raising the bar, we want to challenge you as developers to think about whether email address is critical or not to the user experience. As I'm sure you know, asking for more permissions can create more friction. And we think about, the principle of value, the maximum user experience. Part of that is the minimum amount of information that's needed from the person in order to create that great experience. So this new public profile, this simplified public profile, is part of Graph API 3.0, which we're excited to launch today. And it is required to be a part of apps effective January 8th of next year. The next update I want to talk about is the permissions process. So this deals with app review, which we're excited, as Mark announced, we're reopening today. And I want to talk with you about app review and how that relates to different permissions. So if you're looking to access public profile and email address, no app review is required. App review is required if you'd like to access age range and gender. And we have a new contracts process. Miriam's going to go into more detail on this. At this point, in terms of permissions, this will entail things like check-ins, likes, photos, posts, events, and groups. Next, sensitive information. We've heard from people that things like their religious and political views, who they're in a relationship with, where they went to school, where they work, these can be really sensitive pieces of information for people. So we're no longer allowing apps to access them. Last week, we announced that Publish Actions is deprecated. A best practice, if you've been using Publish Actions, is to use shared dialogue. And you can check out our developer documentation for information on how to do that. Access tokens. We're requiring that access tokens be refreshed every 90 days. And again, we're really pushing ourselves and developers to keep relationships with people fresh and relevant and meaningful. So if somebody hasn't logged in to your app or website in 90 days, they'll be prompted to go back through the Facebook login flow to reaffirm that they want to be connected to your service and also to review their permissions. And the last update I'm going to go over before Miriam takes the stage is one that speaks directly to you guys as developers, and it's something you've been asking for, so I'm really excited to talk about it. We've heard from you that having to use your personal Facebook profile to manage your business apps is not so ideal. As you may have experienced in the past, you've probably gotten emails related to your business apps going to your personal email. Maybe you've moved on to a different business, so that's not so helpful. Maybe you've had to friend a vendor to get them involved in your app. For a number of reasons, it hasn't been the greatest experience. We've heard you, and coming soon, you're going to be able to, in Business Manager, manage your business apps. So again, this is something that's coming in the next few weeks, but up on the screen you'll see on the left-hand side a new menu item called Apps. And from here you'll be able to add developers, add vendors, assign roles, assign assets, and edit all of those. And this is a change that's coming in the coming weeks, and we hope that you'll find it very beneficial. Now I'm going to turn things over to Miriam to talk about a little bit more of the technical details.
Amy. So I'm thrilled to be here. I'm officially the last woman standing between you and happy hour, so I'm sure you're all thrilled too. I'd love to get to know a little bit more about all of you guys. So how many of you in the room are developers? All right, about half of you. Are there product managers? Oh, about another third. Marketers? Okay. Are there any fellow Canadians in the house? All right, I'll take it. So our mission at Facebook is to give people the power to build community and bring the world closer together. As someone who's had a direct line to a number of you through many calls and meetings this past month, more so than ever, I want to express how much we value all of you in our community. I know some of the updates we made this past month may have been inconvenient for your business, but we're so appreciative of your support and patience through these times, and we're committed to supporting you as we build a more meaningful platform. So with that, let's talk about some best practices and updates to keep in mind as a developer. So as you heard from Mark's keynote this morning, we announced that App Review has reopened for business. And as Amy mentioned earlier, there's now 3 flows for requesting app review, permissions, and APIs. And I'll briefly cover each of these. So in the first flow, these are permissions that don't require app review. So this includes email, public profile, and a few of our APIs. In the second flow, these are permissions that require app review only. So the first 3 you'll notice are ones that used to be behind public profile, but with our Graph API 3.0, we've moved these behind app review. So once you upgrade, you'll need to request access to them if you still need them. I also want to take a moment to talk about our user link permission, as we've changed how profile links work. The intent of this feature is to enable people who have social experiences in your app to be able to find and connect with each other on Facebook, and we'll continue to restrict this to logged-in users only. Now, to prevent abuse and misuse of this feature, which we've seen happen in the past, we'll be making a couple of changes which are in effect as of today. So first, to access profile links, you'll need to call a Graph API. Second, we're resolving all profile links to an individual's Facebook profile for that person's friends and those in their extended network. And third, if you've been storing old profile links, they'll only work if you refresh them by calling the /me endpoint on our Graph API. So this brings us to the third flow. For more sensitive permissions and APIs, in addition to app review, we'll require you to verify your business as well as sign a contract with our team. So if your app needs access to any permissions that are behind app review, we're giving you 90 days to go through this process so that you can continue to use them. And for tech providers, so for those of you that are B2Bs, Facebook marketing partners, aggregators who build and manage apps and bots on behalf of businesses, there's a slightly modified process for you as you work with a number of customers. So in addition to signing a contract, we'll also require you to sign an additional amendment. So as a reminder, the app review submissions process hasn't changed, but we are adding a couple of new flows into the steps for more sensitive permissions and APIs, including business verification. So we'll require you to verify that your business is authentic and that you're able to represent it. And the second piece is signing a contract with us, where we'll send you a link to sign a contract, and we'll require you to implement some additional security standards, notify us if there's a data breach, and some additional terms. So that wraps up a lot of the changes we made to app review and permissions. A lot of you have been also asking us, for some of the permissions that we deprecated, what does Facebook now return to the Graph API? So this is an example if your app was previously requesting a user's work history or education history, both which no longer exist. As you'll see, we don't return any fields for these deprecated permissions, which is the same as if the user didn't have them in their profile. So the callouts here are that you've been requesting deprecated permissions in the past, clean up your code to remove them, and you can find that full list in our developer docs. Now, as you heard from Amy earlier, users must go through the login process every 90 days for their access tokens to be renewed. When we first made this change, we intended to minimize the impact for you, especially if you are already handling expired tokens well. But I know this has been a very hot topic amongst many of you, so let's talk about some use cases and ways you can test your expired token flows. So to start, all platforms follow the same basic strategy to get an access token. The client would request access and permissions through the SDK and the login dialog. Then the user would authenticate and approve those permissions. And finally, an access token will be returned to the client. Since many of you will want to keep your users active and sessions persistent as long as possible, I'll walk through what generating a long-lived token looks like. And as a refresher, user access tokens come in two forms, either short-lived or long-lived. Short-lived tokens have a lifetime of up to 2 hours and are typically used on the web, whereas long-lived tokens have a lifetime of up to 60 days. So to generate a long-lived token, you would start with a short-lived token that's generated on a client, and then ship this to your server. You would then take this token, your app secret, and your app ID to make a call from your server to our Facebook servers, and this will convert this short-lived token into a new long-lived token. Once you retrieve this long-lived token back to your server, you can then use it to ship it down to your client to make additional calls there, or you can use it to make server-to-server calls through our Graph API. Now, for a lot of you that were doing server-to-server refreshes in the past, you may have been auto-authorizing people on their behalf to keep their sessions persistent for an indefinite period of time without having to take them back to the login dialog. This has changed so that you can still continue to refresh long-lived tokens as long as they're still active and valid for a maximum of 60 days, or the number of days remaining up until that 90-day mark from when the user last went through the login dialog. And the same is true for both client-side or server-side refreshes. So for websites, and those of you that are using the JavaScript SDK, we have 3 new optimizations available today to help you better design these login flows. So the first is on the JavaScript getLoginStatus function, and this allows you to determine the state that a user is in. So previously, we had 3 states for a user. They could either be connected, not authorized, or unknown. Starting today, we'll have a new 4th state, which is the authorization expired state, and this will tell you if that user's token has expired. So this will allow you to better distinguish between a user that has never logged in with Facebook or has disconnected login and is in the not authorized state, compared with a user that has signed in with Facebook before, but whose access token has expired and is in the authorization expired state. The second feature we've added is a new time in the auth response object, and it's called reauthorize required in. So this allows you to know when a user's authorization will expire in seconds, so you can build the right prompts before it actually expires. And the third feature is that if you know this user's authorization is expiring soon, you can add the auth type is equal to reauthorize within the JavaScript login parameters to extend it to 90 days. So as a business, what are some potential scenarios to keep in mind? The first is the most basic one, which doesn't require any changes. So for example, if you're a fashion e-commerce, and upon someone creating an account for the first time, you simply ask for their email address, their first name, and you never make a call to our Graph API again. In this case, no changes would be needed, but we would still recommend testing your expired token flows to ensure that you're handling this well. In the second scenario is if you're doing client-side refreshes and you attempt to refresh a user's account with their most updated information every so often. So for example, if you're a fitness app and you carry a user's profile photo and their current city throughout the app experience, you may have this set up right now so people can continue to use your app or your website even after their access tokens expire. However, if that user changes their profile photo, they move cities, you'd have an old account state. So in this case, we would recommend retesting your Graph API calls, testing your expired tokens flow to ensure that there's no app crashes, you're handling the experience well, and then prompting those users to sign back in with login so you can get their most active account state. The third and final scenario is if you're doing server-to-server calls to our Graph API and continually authenticating and refreshing people's accounts. So for example, if you're a game and on a daily basis you look for a user's friends who also play the game so that they can connect with each other, after 90 days, your token refreshes will fail. So if getting someone's most active information is vital to your app experience, similar to before, we would recommend retesting your Graph API calls, testing your tokens flow, and then you can do a couple of things. You can prompt them to sign back in through the login dialog, or you can build a lightweight login dialog directly within your app so that they can most quickly and easily sign in and have the most account up to date. So I've talked a lot about access tokens, expirations, testing. How do you guys test your own flows? So starting today within your app dashboard, if you go to the Test Users tab, you can select either an existing test user or create a new test user, and you can edit their settings to change the login token expiration time. Once you toggle that button to yes, we'll default that test user's token expiring every 5 minutes, or you can set a custom time in minutes, and this will allow you to more quickly and easily test various flows and scenarios amongst multiple test users. So the last topic I'll cover is helping you stay informed of users' connections and ensuring a healthy developer ecosystem. One of the existing features we have in your app dashboard is a deauthorized callback URL. As you saw earlier, users can go to their apps and website settings and disconnect apps that they haven't used in a while. So to help your app detect when this happens, we allow you to provide a callback that gets pinged every time this occurs. So as a best practice, if you have an email on file for that user, you can send that user an email acknowledging that they've disconnected their Facebook account, and then you can offer them a couple of options. They can sign in with another method if you have that available. You can keep their account intact if they decide to sign back in with Facebook in the future, which we hope that they do. Or you can close their account and delete all of their information. Additionally, we'll soon have a new data deletion callback URL also in your app dashboard, and this will be for users who request their data to be deleted. So how many of you here are based in Europe? Okay, a handful of you. So I'm guessing the same number of you are super familiar with GDPR. So if that's a priority for your business, this is another feature that may be beneficial for you. And for those of you who aren't aware, GDPR is the General Data Protection Regulation, and it creates consistent data protection rules across Europe and will be in effect at the end of this month on May 25th. So in the coming weeks, for users, if they delete a connection from their apps and website settings, they can also request that app to delete their account and all its associated information. So for your app, by providing this callback URL, we'll also require you to send users a link where they can check and verify the status of their request. And in the coming year, we'll make this a requirement for both new and existing apps to provide this callback. Last month, we also introduced a new data abuse bounty program. And this rewards people that have firsthand knowledge that a Facebook platform app is collecting and transferring people's data to be sold, stolen, or used for malicious intents or scams. So if you know of a bad actor or a bad app in our system, please let us know so that we can review them and reward you where possible. So as you can see, it's been quite a sprint this month for us, and we know that in turn that may have meant work on your end as well. I wanted to resurface our platform principles on value, control, and trust, as these have guided our recent pivots in reshaping our platform and protecting users' privacy and security. At the heart of it all, ultimately, the strength of our platforms comes from all of you in the community here, so people, developers, and businesses. So we're really looking forward to evolving our platform in partnership with all of you. So you can come to our developer garage. It's right across the room here. We have a number of folks from our engineering and product teams that would love to meet you. Amy and I will also stick around. And thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Enjoy the happy hour, and please don't forget to fill out our survey.
All right, let's talk happy hour. Thank you so much for coming to F8 today and making our first day really excellent. Happy hour starts at 6 p.m. across the street at the City National Civic, and that's also where the after party will be held. There will be metal detectors there, just like this morning, so we recommend that you travel light. You can keep your bags at Coat Check, which is open until 9:30 p.m. All right, let's go have a great time. Have fun, guys.